Brant DXT grain carts have efficient unload speeds, large carrying capacities, unmatched durability, and reliable components that make sure your cart is working when you are. Lead the field with DXT grain carts from Brant. Visit your local Brant dealer for more information.
Okay, as you heard me saying yesterday, what a news day that yesterday was. And we're still trying to, get our arms around some of the details and some of the news that broke yesterday. One of the big pieces of news that broke at the back end of the day was that the Alberta Beef Producers have announced a withdrawal from the Canadian Cattle Association effective in 2026, I think June of 26. Here for the details on the why and what now, it is the chair of ABP. It is Doug Roxburgh. Hey, Doug, how are we doing?
Oh, not too bad. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so tell me about your operation. Where do you ranch?
So my wife and I farm just south of Rimbey, Alberta, on the west side of Gull Lake. Cow-calf backgrounder, and we have a direct-to-consumer beef program as well. So,
Oh, nice, cool. Well, I would love to hear more about that direct to market, but we got some big fish to fry here,
100%.
so to speak. Okay, why why the announcement yesterday? Why is ABP withdrawing from CCA?
Well, it's a great question, and I think the biggest thing for yourself and for beef producers in Alberta and across Canada to understand, ABP really feels it is important to have a strong national organization. We got into this position here where we're coming to the end of a 3-year funding agreement with CCA, where we've been funding CCA through retained marketings. So a number of years ago, we went through a plebiscite where producers had the ability to pull their dollars back from ABP, and we used to pay CCA on 100% of marketings, and it left ABP in a financial hole, unfortunately. Thankfully, we were able to get this 3-year agreement in place with CCA, and we were able to get in a position where we were financially stable, both at Alberta Beef Producers, but we were able to fund CCA in a way that they were able to also be in a great financial place to do the things that we required. We're coming to the end of that agreement. June 30th, 2026, that agreement wraps up. And so we started the negotiations with CCA quite early, on the sense that we wanted to be really open with CCA, start the discussion, give lots of time. When we went back to the delegates and the membership, it was communicated to us that a new funding agreement wasn't just around looking at the dollars. It was really diving into some of the concerns that our members in Alberta had around things like governance, transparency, and communication from CCA. And so we felt at the executive level at first that maybe this communication with CCA would be mostly focused around strictly funding. We would get the dollars and cents figured out, and we would all be in a great place. But the communication definitely came back that the membership wanted to see things changed more at a governance level. And so when we got to the position of, deciding to pull out, this was not something that happened overnight. This has been a discussion that's been going on as long as I've been around at ABP. Over the last 5 years, it's certainly been communicated. The challenge I think that we've found is when we've talked to CCA about making some of the necessary changes in the last number of years, we just haven't seen any movement, any meaningful change. And so we were at a position now where we decided to say to the membership, you know what, we're going to step aside from CCA right now, not as a long-term thing, but simply as a negotiation strategy to give us an ability to say to CCA and say to ABP, what do you guys want from your end, and what does our delegate body want to see on our end? It gave us some space, and it gave us some time that it didn't bind anybody to have to make a snap, rash decision. It allowed us to step back, analyze the situation, hopefully put some of the changes around governance and things like that in place with CCA, have the discussions, and then hopefully we can go forward. Understand that we have approximately 10 months until current funding agreement runs out. And that's a big key point to this. Everybody needs to understand we're not stopping funding CCA today. We've got till the end of June 2026, where we will still honor our agreement with CCA. And our hope is that we can get something in place that maybe this all becomes a moot point long term, and we're able to have a new funding and a new governance agreement going forward, that July 1st, 2026, all this that's been happening today, it just goes away and we continue on.
Okay, so you've answered a few of my questions here. But my initial perception, Doug, was that this looked like a negotiation tactic.
Yeah.
Sounds like so definitely there is an opportunity to get off this current trajectory of leaving and negotiate and not leave CCA
100%.
in June of 26?
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
Okay. So there's a couple. So you've hit on a couple of the words that were in the press release yesterday that a lot of people that were texting and calling me, what's going on? They focused on. You mentioned them. First is governance.
Yes.
What needs to change in your mind in relation to governance?
So one of the things, and it's in CCA's bylaws already, it's governance around representation. So right now, Alberta Beef Producers contributes about 55% of the total funds going to CCA. But when you look at our representation by province, Alberta only has 29% of the actual seats or representation currently today. So there had been a freeze during our last negotiations where we froze at 7 seats. We have asked to unfreeze that seat situation and allow us to go back up to the 8 seats that we had previous. But there's a lot of moving that has to happen within some of the other provinces. We're not asking that we need a representation of a full 50 or 55%, but we have to get to a position where we're better covered here in Alberta, because right now we just don't have the representation for voting rights here in Alberta on CCA at a high enough percentage to allow us to be truly represented for how much we physically contribute to CCA.
Transparency. I will tell you that I've left that one second because that's the one that a lot of people are like, what? So explain that.
Yeah, so like right now at ABP, we have a finance chair and we have a full audit committee. Every year, ABP's books are audited by an independent group. We provide that information in detail back to our membership at our annual general meeting. Typically, we'll start to supply some of that during our annual beef producer meetings. I think we did 11 or 12 here in January and February, right across the province. And when we get into ABP or into CCA, CCA today does not have a finance chair in place. So some of the transparency that we're looking for is right now we understand, not just in Alberta, but across Canada, we're going to see reduced marketings going forward. There's just physically less cattle in the country. And because we have these less cattle in the country, we're understanding, even at ABP, that we maybe have to be a little bit more fiscally responsible with our dollars because there's just less dollars to go around. Because we don't have that transparency with CCA to get information back as to how some of this money is being spent that we contribute, we really struggle with CCA to get a clear picture of saying, if you guys aren't going to kind of rein in spending through some of these periods of time when, we're maybe at a place where we have less marketings, how are we going to navigate this? And we keep coming back to CCA and asking for that information. That transparency right now on the fiscal management just isn't there.
So I just want to clarify. For some people have interpreted that there is the use of the word transparency is being used in the fact that you're concerned that money is being spent inappropriately. But what you're saying there is that you just want to know where it's being spent. Like, can you just
Yeah,
clarify that?
by all means, I don't believe in any way we're accusing CCA of inappropriately spending funds. But I think the transparency is where are some of the funds going? And if CCA is going to require the thought around more funding going forward and looking to increase their budget, we do have some concerns around that. There was a big focus a few years ago around some environmental work with the government, and ABP kind of pushed back on some of that work. We were seeing a lot of resources being directed that way, and we were looking for what the costs were in some of that, and we just weren't getting that feedback that we were looking for to have a clear picture of where the dollars were going.
Just sidestepping here and just looking at it from maybe a little bit higher level.
Yep.
Do ABP and CCA have major policy differences? Can you comment on that?
No, I mean, I think overall we're here to advocate for the cattle industry. I know CCA certainly works at the federal level, but ABP has done a lot to work at more of the provincial, or I'm going to say at the state level. ABP has communicated and visited a lot with a lot of U.S. states, and we've translated that information up to CCA to help build stronger relationships. I mean, we certainly understand we've been going through a tariff concern here with our largest trading partner in the U.S. So we've certainly been working alongside CCA to strengthen those ties. And I don't believe that we're on different paths. I think ultimately what we're looking for in certain situations, at least coming out of Alberta, is we're just looking for Alberta to have the fair say in some of the decisions that are being made, simply because we do represent such a large portion of the industry.
What happens if we don't leave this trajectory? Then what?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess there's two parts to that. I mean, again, I reinstate that, we gave CCA a kind of a 10-month runway on the hope that we can get something done. Within Alberta, funds that traditionally would have been passed on to CCA will remain in Alberta, but it's not to fund ABP directly. ABP has already put together a really strategic plan moving forward, and we'll present more of that detail going forward. But we'll be in a position where we'll be able to fund and work alongside CCA at more of a national level coming out of Alberta. So those funds are still going to be coming in, still going to be utilized for for global trade, things like that. But I think it's also really important to understand that none of the funding stops for important programs like BCRC. Right now, today, Andrea and her team down at Beef Cattle Research Council, a portion of their funding comes out of Alberta. Project funding comes out of Alberta as well. Public stakeholder and relations, that's a program run through CCA. None of that funding stops. That all continues whether we get a new agreement or not, because it comes out of the national checkoff levy. So really important to understand that there's kind of multiple parts to all of this.
Yep.
CCA, I think, will be the one that'll have to figure out long term if we can't come to a long-term agreement, because they will be the ones that will lose a significant portion of their funding going forward. But I really hope that in this position it gives us the ability to rectify this and get back on path.
So for the people that aren't living every day in cattle politics, Doug, what wouldn't be funded in that situation?
So more of the work that's done on Capitol Hill. Right now, CCA has a representative that works off the Hill. CCA has an office up there. They talk more with, John Barlow, Heath McDonald, our current federal ag minister. They have more of that direct communication. It's not to undermine any of that work that's been done. I will say that the staff at Alberta Beef Producers thus far has had great communication with MPs, senators. So it would be more working at that national level. And I think in terms of, some of our global trade, we still rely on organizations like Canada Beef to do some of that global trade. I know the team and Brody Hogan, our past chair of ABP, they were just over in the Philippines and Vietnam here working on global trade. That was something, again, ABP teamed up with some of our national organizations. So I don't think it's about overriding or it's about sidestepping. I think it's about working in tandem. It's just, ultimately we would like to see it where we're just one unified voice for sure.
Are you confident? Maybe give me a probability. Maybe that's unfair. I'm just curious your level of confidence here that you're going to be able to find a deal with CCA.
I would say I never say never, but I truly do firmly believe we will get this figured out. I have no qualms about that whatsoever. Tyler Fulton, the current chair of CCA, the staff, the great people they have working around them, I think we'll be able to sit down, negotiate this. Unfortunately, some people said, like, why did this need to become public? Why did this not happen behind closed doors? The challenge back that I'll put to that is over the last 5 years, we've really worked with CCA in the background to try to rectify some of these problems. We just haven't been able to get there. And unfortunately, we had to kind of push it over the edge here to where we're at today to hopefully make some of this happen. But I truly believe the team at CCA and the group we have at ABP will make something work here. So
yeah, you made some sense of this. You've done a good job of explaining your position here for sure, Doug. It's and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you feel that CCA has been an effective lobby organization. The issue is behind the scenes in regards to those two things you said, governance and transparency.
Yeah, no, they've done great work. Again, Dennis Dennis Daudet and Tyler Fulton were just recently back in Washington. They've done a lot of work. We're just maybe looking to bring the standard of operations up to a little bit higher standard here today.
Hey, Doug, I appreciate you joining us here today. I know things are busy on the ranch as well as probably a lot of discussions around these negotiations. So thank you so much for joining us here today. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.